Cloudstar's journey is generally regarded by the fandom as a pretty good book, a tragedy detailing the downfall of the original SkyClan and how they came to live by the Gorge. But like most of the SkyClan books, it isn't often revisited in the modern day, as it feels disconnected from the rest of the series. This time period in particular is one we have never spent time in before, so there is a lot of work to be done in building up the clan culture, individual personalities, and depicting a realistic tragic fall, and, according to the title, Journey to the Gorge, all in just the 10 chapters that a novella generally contains. Something tells me this will be a bit of a clipped story in one regard or another. Cloudstar's Journey was released on January 29th of 2013, about 2.5 months after Yellowfang's Secret, 4 months after Misty Star's Omen, the last novella, and about 10 months after The Last Hope. As with the other novellas so far, they haven't been released alongside any other books, and in fact over a month would go by before we get the next book, which will finally be returning us to the main series. This 12-month span of Warriors history was dotted with only 3 supplemental books, 2 of which were short novellas written only by Vicky. A large part of this is because, with Vicky stepping back after The Last Hope, they almost certainly needed to spend time building up and instructing the new editing team who would be leading Warriors. Releasing 3 books in a year is a lot for most book series, even if 2 of them are short, but with the pattern Warriors established, going this long without a main series entry was certainly an oddity. However, at least in this case, it does seem to have given them more of an opportunity to go outside the time period and characters we've grown accustomed to. So we'll just have to see if that was ultimately a good choice or not. The allegiances for this book involve a completely new cast of cats, beginning with Cloudstar of SkyClan, his deputy Buzzardtail, and his medicine cat, Fawnstep. We have seen a couple of these cats in short flashbacks or trips to StarClan in the SkyClan books and Battles of the Clans, but this is otherwise a completely new cast, which may be either a blessing or a curse depending on how it's used. For the statistics, this book has a total speaking cast of 34 cats, and the top 5 members of that cast get 74% of the lines. 47% of that cast is composed of she-cats, and those she-cats get 30% of the lines, something we can mostly attribute to Fawnstep, the female medicine cat, and Birdflight, Cloudstar's she-cat mate, being the second and third most prominent characters, after Cloudstar himself. With that said, it's still a relatively balanced and interesting new cast after all, so let's see what they do with it. We begin with Cloudstar and Buzzardtail bantering about work and their respective families, especially with Cloudstar's mate Birdflight expecting kittens. They run into a ThunderClan patrol at the border and have a frosty discussion with them. It seems Seedpelt of ThunderClan in particular is looking for a fight, whether over a slight misplacement in their borders or the very idea of a leader and deputy going on patrol. Buzzardtail points out that ThunderClan has been more bold and disrespectful since Duskstar gave him that strip of land for free. Sorry, Duskstar? Could have sworn it was Darkstar. Yeah, okay, this book just calls him Duskstar all the way through. Okay. Anyway, Cloudstar tries to put himself in the old leader's paws as much as possible, either out of duty or to avoid blaming the past for their present. Hazelwing's kits ambush Cloudstar when they get home, but Cloudstar is more than happy to play with them, and he and Birdflight get to enjoy daydreaming about what their future kittens might be like at the same time. No matter what, Cloudstar loves and will continue to love his family, and thanks StarClan for the joy and prosperity they have brought him and his clan. At that moment, though, a patrol comes back with little prey and explains that there was no prey to be found in the forest around the Two-Leg place because of some massive machines they have making extreme amounts of noise. The patrol suggests they not hunt in that part of the forest anymore, but Cloudstar disagrees. The Two-Legs never bring their machines or even dogs into the forest. Once the prey gets used to the noise, it will come back. He is sure. In StarClan, Maplestar says they are proud of Cloudstar, and that SkyClan has always been the heart of the forest. Their first leader, a Tom named Clearsky, was the first to mark boundaries and to see the importance of keeping their resources for their clan. And then Rowenstar, another SkyClan leader, explains how he was one of the leaders to decide that marking the border daily should be added to the code. And then Duskstar comes to explain how cool it was that he made following the leader a code. SkyClan is the noblest and most skilled of all clans, according to him. They all tell him to be proud and that SkyClan will live forever. Meanwhile, Fawnstep the medicine cat has been receiving bad omens about the Two-Leg activity at the border, several in a row, in fact. Cloudstar hears her out to be kind, but based on his talk with StarClan, he's sure everything will turn out alright with time, and he immediately goes to check on Birdflight instead, taking her for a walk and flirting with her. Later, Cloudstar has a tree climbing session with a group of apprentices, teaching them about skipping between the branches without getting down from individual trees, and having a lot of fun banter with all of them while he does so. They end up moving towards the two-leg place side of the territory, and while they see them moving dirt, one of the yellow monsters pulls up the tree they are all standing in, and Cloudstar nearly falls out of it before the apprentices rescue and drag him to another tree. However, Mintpaw got stuck under the tree and is hurt and unconscious, but alive. Even as they try to get her back, though, more trees are coming down, and they finally realize that two legs are destroying the forest. Cloudstar reports all of this to the clan and asks to take a patrol with Buzzardtail to assess the damage, knowing that they have at least lost the border. Cats are already asking if they should leave, but don't know where they would go. There isn't any more room in the clan territories that isn't occupied by another clan. Cloudstar is insistent that this is their home and they will stay after they reset the markers. StarClan clearly protected them from dying at the tree today, and they are still looking out for SkyClan now. Petalfall, the old deputy before Cloudstar himself, also puts her support in for Cloudstar, who has led them well all this time. In turn, Cloudstar insists that Petalfall value herself and not give up prey to feed the younger cats. They go out on patrol and find fallen trees even further into the territory than they had expected. Cats are worried that the two legs will ignore the borders, that they may move further, and that the prey may never come back in the way it used to be here. But Cloudstar insists that he has had no warnings from StarClan to worry about this, and he prays to them that they keep his clan safe where he cannot. Cloudstar checks in another day and finds that the two legs eventually stopped putting down trees, but are now tearing up the earth and hauling fallen trees away. Fawnstep hasn't received any more omens, but has been getting dreams of fallen trees, Kit's screams, and darkness. Cloudstar thinks all of them will have those sorts of dreams for a while, StarClan or not. He agrees to go on a border patrol and meets Red Star at ThunderClan's border, who is curious if there is trouble in SkyClan with the noise they have heard. Cloudstar decides not to tell the other clans what's going on, considering they couldn't help against two legs, and it would make SkyClan look weak. But hears from one of his warriors that they may need to steal back the territory SkyClan gifted to ThunderClan if things get worse. Cloudstar insists that they don't need it for now, but even with all the hunting patrols coming back and going out again, they're severely lacking in prey. Petalfall is still avoiding eating, and Cloudstar decides that the clan will need to move to 1 meal a day, like they do in Leafbear, which Buzzardtail points out won't work since they need to get their strength up in Greenleaf to make their Leafbear schedule work. Birdflight tries to console him, but Cloudstar isn't sure how to help his clan, and it's making him irritable. At the gathering, Cloudstar shares his news as normal and significantly downplays the effects of the two legs to manage the other clan's perceptions. Even so, Red Star is hostile, and Fawnstep confesses that the other medicine cats have all had bad dreams about SkyClan. Petalfall is also sick again, a common occurrence that forced her to step down from the deputy position in the first place. But now worse with both the lack of food and her emotional state in worrying over SkyClan. She makes Cloudstar promise that he won't let two legs drive them from their home, and he does. He can't sleep well, and Fawnstep tells him to take a walk to avoid waking Petalfall, so he goes out and finds that the two legs are beginning to build two-leg nests on the territory, meaning it would be permanently inaccessible to them or prey. And Petalfall has died. Then, while they're holding the vigil, warriors come back with an injured Oakpaw who fell into a new ditch the two legs dug while chasing a squirrel. Cloudstar decides that no one is allowed to hunt near that border anymore. Later, Cloudstar cancels all of Buzzardtail's hunting patrols and asks everyone to do battle training that day instead. He is taking up Stotefur's earlier suggestion of taking back the territory given to ThunderClan, and they need to do it soon before the clan gets any weaker. The apprentices, queens, and elders stay behind, but every warrior comes to battle with them, and unfortunately, like the scene with Broken Kit's birth and his being given to Lizardstripe, we have already seen this exact scene play out before, from two angles in fact, in Battles of the Clans. We know exactly how this will go. SkyClan uses their strength in the trees as much as possible, but Mousefang gets a broken leg falling to the ground, and the whole clan is ragged and hungry against ThunderClan's fit and well-fed Greenleaf warriors. Chapter 9 opens up with the entire word-for-word scene from Battles of the Clans, beginning exactly where that one did, with Cloudstar saying that they have lost. But there may be other chances to fight in the future. That night, however, Fawnstep wakes him up to say that she had a dream of Birdflight and their kits being left behind as SkyClan left the forest at a gathering, for there was no territory left for any of them. This was a defeat they could not survive. This brings us to our final chapter where that prophecy is to play out. Birdflight has her kittens, a tom and a she-cat, and they name them Gorsekit and Spotted-Kit respectively. However, Cloudstar is soon reminded of the world outside, where SkyClan is starving and StarClan refuses to answer their prayers. Their only hope lies in finding more territory by asking the other clans to donate some of theirs. He brings the whole clan to the gathering, openly explains everything that has been going on, and pleads for their help. But one by one, every leader denies them, and Redstar tells them directly to leave the forest, a suggestion that Swiftstar of WindClan is happy to back up. Despite the warnings of their medicine cats, the leaders won't be swayed, and even use the 4 trees means 4 clans argument for the first time to say that SkyClan shouldn't be with them. However, Birdflight's kits are too small to make the journey, so Kestrelflight, ThunderClan's medicine cat, promises them and Birdflight herself safety in ThunderClan. Cloudstar says goodbye to his family and sets off with his clan, promising everyone that SkyClan will never look to the stars again after seeing all that they have allowed to happen, and promising himself that someday he will find his maiden kits again, as we've seen happen in the SkyClan Super Editions. This is a very rich book. There are a lot of plot pieces left off, which we will talk about, but for the story segment Vicky chose to explore, she made sure it was an exciting and emotional place to be. SkyClan's culture in particular is vibrant and endearing, even in the short 10 chapters we got to see of them. All of the apprentices have their own personalities, shown off in their banter and easy chemistry with each other. The elders and queens care for each other and don't fall exclusively into the grumpy elder or generically kind queen archetypes the series often uses. Buzzardtail and Cloudstar feel like real friends with a casual and long-lasting dynamic, both in leadership roles and as companions. And everyone in the clan feels like they have a history, with references to recent past events and cats discussing their levels of experience in various tasks and relationships, and easily made lesson plans for training sessions. It is easy to imagine SkyClan as a rich and real world, despite the short time we get to spend in it, and this is never more evident than when we get to talk to Petalfall. We met Petalfall back in Battles of the Clans, when she was Flystar's deputy leading the clan in his absence, and as a part of that, hurting the headstrong warrior Cloudstorm, who suggested a raid on the Tulip place to stop kitty pet invasions permanently, and who had a shockingly small amount of faith in or thanks for their ancestors, instead thanking himself and SkyClan's living warriors for their skills. Now we learn that Petalfall retired early because of a chronic illness, which was, according to Cloudstar, the only reason he became deputy and then leader instead of her. He has an immense amount of respect for the Elder, but also a certain amount of tentative guilt that colors their interactions, and causes Cloudstar to so immediately cite StarClan's will as a reason they will survive and stay in this territory. It's a truly heartbreaking and moving element of the book that rewards readers for having read both pieces of supplemental material to understand the sides and times of this relationship, but that can also stand on its own. Another beautiful relationship is that of Cloudstar and Birdflight, who really needed to be a convincing relationship for the story's ending to hit emotionally. They don't have a heartbreaking past or a specific history, but they do have an easy chemistry with each other, mutually reaching out to each other when they notice the other becoming more closed off, emotional, or irritable because of the circumstances around them, and filling each other's lives with joy when they have spare moments. Their excitement over starting a family and various daydreaming plans of what it'll be like are adorable, and their dialogue doesn't reuse the templates of a lot of standard Warriors romances. This is a good relationship, balanced and well-written, but in true Vicky form, that is all in service of making it all the more tragic when Cloudstar is torn from this family at the end, an inevitability given that we've already seen the end of this story if we've been keeping up with the series. Speaking of that inevitability, let's talk about the overarching dread of this story, because it is a tragedy that assumes you know the ending as you come in, and spend each and every chapter awaiting the downfall of SkyClan with a pit of anxiety forming in your stomach. In addition to adding a very interesting emotional layer to every lovely, happy, chemistry-filled clan scene, it also makes the prophecies that come included free with almost every Warriors story feel more natural and fresh. StarClan is able to send omens of doom because it allows the characters to take on a piece of the dread that we as readers already experience. They are able to send a direct vision of the near future because the readers have already seen that future, and the days past it. And they are able to do all of this without the story itself being too dark because fans of the series have already likely read the book where Cloudstar and Birdflight are able to reunite in StarClan. Even if this specific book ends sadly, we know, and the end of this book reminds us, that the story does end happily, given enough time. The one problem I do have with StarClan's portrayal in this book is their initial visit to Cloudstar, where they bring various historical figures together to tell him that everything is fine and SkyClan has nothing to fear from Two Legs because they will live forever. This clearly colors how Cloudstar approaches interactions with his clan and the Two Legs for the entire rest of the book, including doubting Fawnstep, who is also receiving messages from StarClan, but in the form of omens and vague dreams rather than specific discussions, and causes Cloudstar in the end to renounce StarClan entirely. I know that scene serves as dramatic irony to increase the dread, but much like many direct interventions of StarClan, it really just ends up making me mad at them. Why didn't StarClan give the same message to Cloudstar and Fawnstep? Why didn't they order the other clan's medicine cats to have their clans give SkyClan land? Or why didn't they order SkyClan to leave in the first place if they found this to be inevitable, since it would allow them to act when their clan wasn't starving and Birdflight hadn't had her kits? It would remove a chance to share some SkyClan history that doesn't have many other places to go in the series, but for this narrative, I think it would be more powerful if Cloudstar either received no messages or only vague signs of doom like Fawnstep did, to at least give the implication that StarClan cannot share more than they already are. That all being said, I'm not unhappy at all with the way the other clans were portrayed. The other four leaders had distinct characterizations in their short scenes, each with their own reasons to protect their own clan over SkyClan. Red Star is deplorable, but in a way that benefits the story and makes sense in the generation following Darkstar's gift, and the Medicine Cats are shown to be exercising their power to subvert as much cruelty as possible. This makes all of the clans entirely culpable in SkyClan's exile, and makes Firestar's determination to right a wrong back in his Super Edition make perfect sense. It doesn't mean that ShadowClan and WindClan of all clans should be punished severely many generations from now for deeds they aren't even aware of Yellowfang's secret, but it places the clans at fault in a way they definitely should be given our previous knowledge of this piece of clan history. The one other thing to cover is, the title. Cloudstar's journey, especially to fans who already know of SkyClan's exile, heavily implies that this book will cover, at least in part, the journey SkyClan took when they left the forest to eventually find the gorge. But in reality, the entire story takes place in SkyClan's forest territory and ends just as they leave the gathering to, in the future, go on their journey. A lot of Warriors titles in general have little to do with the contents of their books, or are just very vague about them, but similar to Sunrise and Sunset having names that make much more sense for each other than for themselves, Cloudstar's Journey is a rare title where it implies the opposite of the book it contains. We know in the present day that the Errands don't pick a title until they're in the editing process at least, but I wonder if this particular book wasn't given a name by Vicky before she realized she wouldn't be able to fit in the journey itself. I don't think focusing on this time period was a bad choice at all given the length of the book, and there isn't any time wasted where a meaningful section of the journey could be put in, but the title does cause a bit of a disconnect from the expectations readers might have. The title is ultimately a very minor part of the book, though, and aside from my quibbles about the StarClan meeting, this book is about the best that a novella can get. It uses its time effectively, has fantastic characterization, especially for a brand new cast, uses multiple layers of tone for the characters in the story and the readers themselves, integrated history and lore from various parts of the series and supplemental material, and even has one of the best relationship portrayals in the series. I always knew this was a pretty good book, but I think it may be one of my favorites in the series so far, definitely being more technically skilled and cohesive than Sunrise, for example. And when we come back, we shall finally be starting the main series again with another flashback story that, if you were paying attention, was very briefly foreshadowed here, when we return for the next episode of our trip through time.